Hey guys, All the Way with Alloway here with Josh Radnor, star of the film Afternoon Delight. So Josh, we've seen you on How I Met Your Mother and then also writing and directing your own indie features. So I'm curious, with this one you were just purely acting. What made you sign on to do the project?
Jill's a friend of mine. I've known her for
Okay.
a number of years, and she called me and she asked for a recommendation for a production designer. So I recommended mine, who wasn't available, and she said, "You're also incredibly right for this role, but you're working. There's no way you'd be able to do it." And I said, "No, it's not. It was right when we were starting on the 8th season, of How I Met Your Mother." And then she said, "Well, we're doing a table read. The rest of the cast is set. Can you come and do the table read?" So I did. And at the end, she was like, "I need you to do this role. I need you to do this role." So we worked it out with work. So I did 3 days a week on How I Met Your Mother, 4 days a week on the movie. So I had, I think, 3 7-day weeks. And but it was great. It was perfect. And it just ended up to be like one of those, I don't know. It was just a really, the whole experience was great. And I'm happy people get to see the movie.
Well, it's her first feature, and she's worked in TV for years. So you being, a cultured director and writer.
Yes.
Very cultured. Actually on set and shooting, how involved were you in those other aspects of the script and the film?
Not really. I mean, it wasn't like she needed my help. I mean, it was her first feature, but she directed a short, and she's run TV shows, so she's been on sets for years. It wasn't like a first-time director who'd never seen a camera,
right.
It was more like getting to watch and be a part of a process that felt like Jill's version of making that particular movie, but I try to do the same thing, which is like create a community atmosphere, create an experience where everyone feels like they're growing up and telling a story that everyone's on the same page with, and really committed to just creating something special. Like not the thing about independent filmmaking is it's not it's clearly not a money grab. Like very few indie films are made with thinking like, oh, we're gonna make $100 million at the box office. Like mostly you're like, this is a story that we really want to tell.
This movie will.
This movie will. Yeah, exactly. But the intention behind it is more pure. It feels like.
Right.
And it was certainly the case here. And
well, and you and Kathryn Hahn have this awesome chemistry. I mean, I totally believed. I think when you are making simple films like indie films. And I believe this with you and Elizabeth Olsen in liberal arts as well. A very simple, believable relationship. Had you worked with Kathryn previously?
I hadn't. We've been friends for years. I know her husband Ethan really well, which was both a help and it was always kind of like, sorry Ethan, we're shooting something today that. I mean, I think in some ways we what those two relationships, on-screen relationships, are to me. Feels like, well, shouldn't it be like that? Like, shouldn't you believe that a couple is really married and going through it? Shouldn't you believe that people can meet and fall in love and have resistance to it and get in their head about it? Like, to me, those are the movies I want to watch and those are the movies I want to make. And I feel like in some ways, it's shocking now to see two people really connect on film because we don't see it that much. We don't see movies that feel honest. We see movies that feel rigged or feel constructed in a way to give you some sort of either a plot thing or to give you some sort of sensory feeling that is provocative. But I want to watch movies that make me reflect on my life, that make me feel something, that make me think a new thought or feel a new feeling. And
well, it's interesting because everything you're talking about is kind of a central theme that runs through the film, which is about seeing. As you're saying, you like doing films that help you see in your own life. So doing this movie in particular, how did it kind of open your eyes to some things that you as Josh deal with?
I think the movie is about real life and fantasy life, or almost like movie life, kind of colliding. So you have this marriage that's like real life, and then you bring in this element that's like this kind of fantasy element, or what Hollywood or the media tells us is sexy, like, oh, young stripper, right? And
with you
drop that into this real life, and it's kind of like you're now confronted with this very strange fantasy of like, well, this is what will make you happy sexually or personally, and I think then these people have to deal with the fact that not only does that not make them happy, although it does provoke something in them that leads somewhere pretty good, I think, it leads to a lot of suffering. I mean, it leads, not to give anything, I mean, it hurts other couples. Like, the whole thing is really, I guess in some ways it reminds me of, like, what is real and what is valuable, rather than what you're told or sold on what is important and what means something. Does that make sense?
Completely.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think too, I mean, your character designs apps.
Right.
And I met someone the other day who I've known for a while and is an actor and a great actor, and I was like, well, how are you? And he's like, I'm working on this new app. They gave me a new iPhone, you know, the iPhone 5, and I'm like, you're working on an app? What? And I think it's something that it's this technology thing where the world says this is something that needs to be a center spiraling point of your life, but that's not important.
Or also, someone who's trying to create an app is always chasing something new. If you think about it, you know, it's like constantly new, and you forget what you've already built. It's almost like Jeff is, like, he hasn't been tending to his garden, because he's always, you know, thinking like, oh, I gotta keep, and then the more you have to tend to, and the more the stakes get higher in terms of losing it. In some ways, the movie is about slowing down in all our fast-paced, all this stuff. It's like we're on this hamster wheel. And one of the things that's really beautiful about a later scene is they light the Sabbath candles together.
I love that.
And that's about what the Sabbath is supposed to be about, whatever tradition you're in, is about taking a day to stop, taking a day to slow down. But I think the more we get on that hamster wheel and it goes faster and faster, the more we're going to need to find ways to slow down and take a moment to say, okay, I remember who I am, I remember what I'm committed to, I remember myself.
So how do you do that? I mean, I think that, you know, you've had such a successful career as an actor, and doing, like you said, you had 7-day weeks for 3 weeks. So how do you, I mean, what is your advice to actors and filmmakers that do get caught up in that wheel? Like, how do you keep yourself grounded and still move forward?
I meditate every day.
Okay.
I mean, that's been a huge thing for me for about 10 years. Just every morning, I never miss it. I try to get a second one in, but mostly I never miss the morning one. But I think anytime you can take time to just quiet and actually watch the thoughts rather, and not get attached to them, and not think that they're me, you know, because so many times thoughts float through there, just nonsense, whether they're self-loathing thoughts or judgmental thoughts, or I mean all these things happen, and you just have to go, oh, that's happening, like, oh, it's like watching clouds go. By, you know, and it's like not following the cloud.
Just watching clouds.
Yeah, I mean, but not following the thought as if it's like a real thing.
Right.
Because especially in this business, you know, you can turn on yourself so strongly. So I think it's really important to. It's not even in this business. It's like everyone is some sort of mixture of anxiety or depression or worrying, like, oh, I should be here, like a deep restlessness or dissatisfaction with where they are. And I think that's the kind of fishbowl we're in right now. That's just where we find ourselves. So anything you can do to unhook yourself from that for even a moment, to just give yourself some, like, pressure valve release of saying, wait, this isn't who I am. Like, what's happening now is really beautiful and vital, and it should be appreciated, or it's going to be gone. And I think, you know, the more you can realize how abundant you are in every moment, the more abundance comes. But if you're always focusing on where you're not and who you're not with, and why won't they like me, and you know, all these things our minds can do,
instead of seeing what's actually in front of you and going, this is
we're all, I mean, we're all, like, pretty blessed, you know. So it's I mean,
we're not doing the interview in, like, a shack on
We're
the
doing
street.
it in this weird hotel. This weird,
So what's up next for you?
I'm finishing something right now. I wrote a script that I really love, but I kind of was like, this isn't my third film. This is like my fifth film. Like, I wanted to wait on that one. So I'm writing something now that I feel like is probably my third film.
What's the premise?
I can't tell you that. I'm a superstitious writer. No, I'm not going to tell you. But I'm super excited about it. It's different than my first two, definitely. But I'm loving writing it, which is a good sign.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for
good talking to you.
Josh Radnor, guys.
Thanks.